Welcome back to The Difference. Today we're going to continue our conversation with an incredible student at Mississippi College, JT, and we're going to listen to the rest of his personal story of how he ended up looking at the Delta in a way that not only reshaped him, but that we hope will capture your imagination and stir your heart to figure out maybe what you can do to make a difference. So stay tuned.
You are listening to The Difference, a production of The Hour in conjunction, Steve, consociation with the Institute.
I like consociation.
We are in consociation with the Institute for Southern Storytelling at Mississippi College because we have good stories to tell. And isn't that what the good news is all about?
It is.
It's
that
good
and
stories.
making up your own words.
And that's part of good storytelling. Oh, like Jerry Clower used to say. But Steve, man, we had a good time last week, and we invited Jack Thomas Spears to be back with us again. So here is a student at Mississippi College, senior, about to graduate. How long do you have? A week?
Trying to count up the days.
I figured you already had that count. Those days counted down.
It'll be here before I know it.
That's Bryant's birthday. So anyway, you're ready.
Those are the symptoms of senioritis.
You're ready to get. He just does not care. He's done. So we actually did. We sat through for your documentary. Jack Thomas Spears was here last week. If you haven't listened to that program, go back and catch up. But he did a documentary with us on the helping hands in the Delta and about the Mississippi Delta and people that are coming alongside folks and trying to be part of the solution and not part of the problem in the Delta. And he did a beautiful film, lots of beautiful drone footage and just expertly flying through a railroad bridge and all of this kind of stuff. Just wonderful stuff. And we're so proud of him, but he's back today to share with us more about this process because as believers, it's all about the process. It's not everybody, and I think the world sees it as, well, here we're getting fire insurance and you're believing in God so you can go to heaven. Well, that might be a destination, but it's all about the trip, and there's all the kingdom here on earth, and it's all about dealing with loving each other here. And not just over in the glory land and the by and by, everything's going to be wonderful. It's about making a difference here. And that's what our program's all about, the difference. And here is a young person who could have done anything for his senior honors college thesis. And he is a biology student who chose to do a documentary film. And so how can you not like that?
Exactly.
That is different.
That is way different. I'm just telling you, doesn't track as the normal thing, which makes you a perfect member of the Difference Club.
You were abnormal,
so you are
JT.
abnormal. You are different. So, JT, as we continue our conversation, you had told us a little bit last week about your family life, about your roots in the Delta. Talk a little bit more about, as you went through the process of producing this video, and you came at it as a person of faith, what was happening inside of you and in your own kind of belief system and perception of how to live out your faith?
Sure, and I second what Anthony said first off, to go back and watch and listen to last week's video. It gives some really important anecdotes onto my family history in the Mississippi Delta and why that's important. And going forward, they served the community with great love. They served as kind of a mediary, a Chinese American population in the Mississippi Delta. They were a mediary between the white population and the black population, and they served both equally. And my mom tells stories of how my grandmother would cook whole chickens and give them to our garbage men and then utility people on the holidays and Thanksgiving and Christmas. So they had this great adoration for this community. And when going about this project, I saw it not only as a project to serve Delta scholars and later for it to become an honors thesis, but I saw it as an opportunity to serve a community. And I will say I'm guilty of claiming the idea of a documentary in the first place, but something Anthony said last week, it's really important to pay attention to one, what the Lord is showing you, and two, for what's happening in the community around you. And I really agree that you have to. It was in my faith that I came to the idea of the documentary. And I was actually leaving Starkville on the last day. I was driving back to Laurel, Mississippi, where my parents now live. And it's where for the first time I had the idea of a documentary. And I don't think it was my idea. I think it was the Holy Spirit telling me, here is your project. And seeing where it is now and seeing the fruit of it a year and 10 months later is incredible. It's incredible to watch that progression over time. And what happened is I heard it and I immediately ran. I was like, no, I've got another idea. I'll do this photojournalism. I'll do this. And I was like, no, you need to do a documentary. That's what's going to be impactful. That's what people are going to see. That's where the fruit's going to be. And again, very different for me. I've never been a creative person in my life, ever. I can't draw you a picture to save my life. But I knew after hearing that and after listening that I had to make a documentary. So I started doing some research. I started reaching out to people who made documentaries. And I happened to look on the Mississippi College website and I saw the Institute for Southern Storytelling had been founded.
I mean, fresh paint. It had just been founded.
Right.
Yes.
And this is the summer that I was in Delta
Fresh paint.
Scholars.
That
like
should
that?
be a show in itself, the transformation of this studio.
Yes. I mean, I couldn't imagine what it looked like beforehand. And I saw that it had been founded. And right, I don't believe that we serve a God of coincidences. I believe that we serve a God who has a power, who has plan and has will and has sovereignty. So, like Anthony gave the story last week, I approached them with the idea of this documentary, not knowing where it could lead. Because I've never done this before. I've never done this sort of work. So I was in a really great portion of unknowing. And I would say at that time.
Wait. Let me stop you there because that's profound. You're in a really great place of unknowing.
Yes.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, specifically that time period in my life, I was a junior at Mississippi College. I had just recently changed my major. And so there was a newness to the classes I was taking. There was a newness to this project I was undertaking. And I would say that really for the first time in my life, I didn't see clear steps forward. And so what I inevitably had to do is I had to trust the Lord in it. And I didn't do that perfectly. I didn't do it immediately. I didn't do it continually.
Well, if you'll hang around here, we'll teach you how to do it perfectly.
That's right. We've got it all figured out.
Oh, yeah. So I see. And it was in that unknowingness that I had to trust the Lord, right? And during that time, just over and over and over again, the story of Peter stepping out of the boat onto the sea. He didn't know what he was stepping onto. But what did he have to do? He had to trust in Jesus who had called him out there. So I had this call for this documentary. I spoke with the Thaxtons. Okay, yeah, we can get it together. You need to find people to interview. And I had a rough list of individuals in mind, and that came from the Delta Scholars and through other networking opportunities I had. And so I started reaching out to these people, and it was just immediate, their reaction. Yes, when can we have this interview done? Yes, when can we have this done? And so what I started doing first off is I interviewed people who had made documentaries, and I listened to their advice, and I listened to what they had done because I'm a new person. I had to do some research on this. So I interviewed Jason Coker. I interviewed a Jackson State University professor, and they told me, their stories, and I'll never forget. Me and the Jackson State professor, we sat down at this coffee shop, and she just starts speaking. And you know it, when somebody starts speaking directly to your soul. Mm-hmm. And she did. And she said, you're in the right place. You're doing the right thing. And she said something right after that I have held on to for a long time, which was that
you needed to contribute to the Institute for Southern Storytelling. Is that what? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's not what she told me.
I thought that was where you're going. I'm sorry.
Not quite. Not yet. We can contribute after the fact.
I'm so sorry. You were building up to this sweet moment, and I just trashed it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And she said this. She said, you're wanting to hold a spotlight right now in your path going forward, but all the Lord's giving you is a lamp. That's what the Word of God is. A lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. That He sets the steps that He has before us in place. But He's not building the entire staircase.
No.
He's putting steps in front of us. And so I had those preliminary interviews. I did a semester of reading and research on the Mississippi Delta. And I would come across these quotes in these books, and it would just, every single time, it would reinvigorate the passion that I had about this project. And again, this looming project that I couldn't see the end. I couldn't see what it looked like. I didn't know how it was going to take shape. I didn't have the title until 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I did this reading and research. And towards the end of the spring of my junior year, I started reaching out to interviewees, emailing them. And out of 20 people that I emailed, 8 gave me good responses, and 6 of those I was able to use. And it was incredible because I would go, and I will never forget each of those interviews. And I would go to these interviews, and I didn't know what to expect. And I knew that I was just going to allow them to tell their story because I had had a list of interview questions, and I realized the bias and the assumptions that I had there. And so I'd go and sit in front of these people who, mind you, were taking an hour and a half out of their day from feeding people, from creating programming for after school students, from putting the coats on the back of children to speak to me. And I would just leave there so encouraged in their faith, in their service, and seeing deeply, even deeper than in the Delta Scholars, the helping hands of the Mississippi Delta, the hands and feet of Jesus, those who are caring for the least of us.
Living it.
Right. Day in and day out.
And as I'm listening to you, I think about what a wonderful thing it would be if all education was kind of that immersive experience that truly wasn't, hey, we have to have information, but it's not information and regurgitation. It's transformation.
Right.
It's this information
Right.
that changes you from the inside out. And as I'm sitting here watching you speak, I literally can see that this physically, emotionally, and spiritually taught you so much.
Oh, it did. And I would say that the thesis project in all taught me just as much as and or more than my entire college experience. And that's not to downplay my college experience or my professors or mentors there. But this was a world of difference that I was living in. And it was incredible how the Lord blessed me with the idea of the documentary. He put the people in place. He put the Thaxtons there. He founded the Institute. He put the interviews who emailed me back, who were passionate. When we went and set up, they were very open and vulnerable. To me, a stranger who they'd never known. They were open and vulnerable, and they gave me passionate interviews. And they told their stories to the deepest level of truth.
Mm.
And again, I walked away each time just so encouraged. And I would tell them, I told every single one of my interviews that today your faith, watching your faith and watching what you have to do every single day has encouraged me. And so I compile all the interviews.
Well, before you go there,
Sure.
because I got a couple of things, 3 or 4 things I got to say. All right, because interviews don't just happen. I've seen a lot of people try to interview folks. I've been given a lot of credit for establishing rapport with people I'm interviewing, and then we can do a 3-hour interview, and I've pulled a bunch of things out, and then you're able to make a good film because you got the right things said. You were quiet at the right time. You do a very good job of interviewing because you're listening and you're prepared. You've got your prompts, but then you let a spirit lead you in those conversations. And so that's one thing. You did a really good job of your interviews, and for God speaking back to you through these interviews part of that is because of your willingness to listen. And that's an important thing that I think we fail to realize sometimes. Another thing is that you had a lot of professors. You said this was a big part of your, maybe more so than your other part of your experience, but you realized after visiting Harvard, you came back and you shared with me that, not downplaying Harvard at all, but you realized, because at first you didn't want to come to Mississippi College, and then you got here and realized, wow, what your professors, all of your professors, if I go and mention your name to a group of professors, they know who I'm talking about, and that doesn't happen at all universities. And I think you saw that you were able to achieve and hear and be a part of a movement of the Holy Spirit in a lot of ways because of your professors coming alongside of you and lifting you up and supporting and caring about you, not just a number or not just a program or research. So that's something else I wanted to point out. But third, or fourth or whatever, I did want to say this, that there is also a generosity in JT's spirit, because we've done this premiere, we've done these, we went through, what was that? You had to defend your thesis. So we sat in on that, and the professors peppering the questions and saying what they thought, good and bad, and all of these things. And Jack Thomas never once mentioned in any of these situations, nor on this program today, because he said we got to use 6 interviews. He actually did 7, and I lost one of his interviews. I lost the card. I could not find the card with that interview, and he was not able to use that. And not once has he mentioned that. So I'm publicly announcing that and confessing and repenting for that. But his generosity and spirit of, when he heard that and was disappointed, and immediately he found footage of Ralph Eubanks talking about the ladies' ministry, Miss Dickerson's ministry, organization that she does. So he was still able to highlight that and found a way through it, but he didn't moan or complain. He just picked up the pieces and then did something else with it. So that really, really impressed me. And I appreciate that. And I think that kind of spirit is as important as any other editing skills, anything like that. More important, that generosity of spirit is what is going to take you to another place in life and let God use you. So through all that process, and just learn, he had never edited. He learned how to use Final Cut. I'd show him something, and then he said, okay, I got it from here. And then he edits a film. So I think there's a lot of lessons here. And one of those is that raise your hand and say, I want to try this. I want to do this. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times you'll be provided with the tools and the support to do something if your agenda, your motives, your vision is the right way.
Right. Well, and trust in the Lord in the process of something that's different. Because
Peter didn't drown.
Right.
He messed it up. He started sinking, but he didn't drown.
He was picked up.
Yeah.
And I think that's, and like, I don't think even the generosity I shared towards you was even my generosity. That's what the Lord had done through the whole entire program, right? He gave me the idea of the interview. He gave me the interviewees. He set the times up. I was able to take enough class load to still finish my major on time, even though I'd switched. But at the same time, I had enough time to travel to the Delta and do these interviews. Like, that's a miracle, right? He blessed me with those things.
Right. And I think as I'm listening, I mean, I've seen a good many doctoral dissertations. I've seen a good many papers written with great energy and effort, but you don't see many infused with the Holy Spirit. Mm-hmm. And the sense that God inhabits the things that are done in faithfulness and goodwill, and they become living things,
right,
that we get to be a part of, that aren't just about us. That's the other thing that I've discovered in my ministry, is it's never always just about you. That there are these holy intersections where all of us are being blessed in the moment, that truly makes up Christian community. That second chapter of Acts, they ate from house to house. They shared all things in common. That whole idea you talked about asset-based management. The genius of God's kingdom is there is enough when we all are faithful.
Right.
And we bring our and you have just kind of walked into that and embodied it so beautifully in all this.
Right. And so, of going off of that, of course I wouldn't be upset with you that you lost it, because the Lord had created all of this trust in this whole project in itself. So why would I let one lost interview destroy all the trust that he'd given me? And by that time I had started editing. And to tell you another true story I haven't told anybody yet, I sat down.
Wait, you're about to tell everybody.
Right, I'm telling everybody. I sat down and I had 7.5 hours of interview time. And I went through and I cut all the clips that were unnecessary, that weren't part of what I was going for. And again, at this time, I still had no idea. I had no clue what form or shape this documentary was going to take.
And people need to understand, I didn't go in there and do all this for you.
Right.
This was you. When you ask questions, I would tell you about how to technically use Final Cut, or I suggested to you putting on a timeline and kind of grouping similar thoughts. Now have at it. And we had where you could check in and sit at a computer, and you worked in the middle of the night and would just whenever you wanted to, and you crafted this thing. And then, so you had the 7 hours footage. So your initial cut, though, you whittled it all the way down to
2.5 hours. And those were clips that I felt like were meaningful that I could use in the documentary. So I had them all pasted below the storyline. And I remember the night that I was like, okay, I got to start building. You know, this deadline's coming. I got to start building something. And I just had a storyline. I knew I wanted introduction. I wanted, conflict, climax, resolution, call to action. I knew that I had those vague ideas. And so I start putting clips, and I watched through it. And I remember like banging on the desk. I was like, this is impossible. Because I felt like I was painting on a 4-inch by 4-inch canvas. And scattered around me were 20 buckets of paint. And I had to figure out how to paint a beautiful picture. And I come back in the next morning. I got frustrated. I went back. I went to sleep late at night. I came back in the next morning. I kind of take everything off the storyline. I'd received some music from Nate Brock, who did an incredible
another MC student at the time.
Right, an MC student. He created the entire, along with Anthony, he created the entire soundtrack for the film. He gave me some film. I went in, I put some clips in, I put a little B-roll, I put some music, and I played it. And after that, I was hitting the table with excitement. And the Lord he redeemed that, right? He redeemed that frustration and the inadequacies and where I thought I would never finish this and the failure that I thought I had ran into. He redeemed it.
Well, and I think I listened to you. I know it was frustration, but it was also this sense of, I have so much treasure here.
Right.
How do I share it?
Right.
How do I get it on that 4x4 piece of canvas that it seemed impossible until God steps in and there's no impossible.
Right. But God, I was frustrated with the film, but God showed me there was another way. And with that 2.5 hours worth of film, I could have made 800 documentaries, but I'm confident in the fact that the one that I made is exactly the one that He would have me to have made. And so then even like little tiny things, like I was back searching in my docs one day, and I saw something from freshman year honors, where we had gone through and coded a text. And emergent coding is a form of qualitative research that historians and English majors and literary artists use to pull themes out of a text. And I'd done that freshman year and forgot about it and realized I can do this with my film. And so that's exactly what I did. I went through and I found the codes, and I came up with a code list of 25 different codes, and they all have quotes in them, they all have definitions. And then through that code list, I was able to create the 4 sections of the film that you now see today in the actual film. But like I said, it wasn't a coincidence that I went back and found that doc from freshman year that I'd forgotten about. It wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a coincidence that, I came upon the idea of a documentary. It wasn't a coincidence that I failed that night.
The stones were in the creek.
Right.
Goliath was there, but the stones were in the creek.
That's true.
And then you got to go to Harvard and present it there with the Delta Scholars Program.
Right.
And what was the response there?
Yeah, so I got to present it at the School of Public Health. I got to be there. They graciously flew me up there. And there.
Steve, I've never had a film shown at Harvard. Have you?
I've seen a film of Harvard.
Okay.
Right, but that's another blessing, because in the Delta Scholars Program, Harvard picks 4 Delta Fellows, and I was picked from that, right? I believe that was a blessing. They just saw my passion for the Delta. They saw my inquisitiveness. They saw my curiosity. All 3 of those things that I just listed for you are gifts of God. He gave me those things. I have no ability except what He has given. And they picked me for this, and then I was able to kind of cultivate this mentorship. They fly me up there. I present it to a classroom of public health faculty and students, as well as some Harvard University faculty. And it was amazing because my mentor that was there, I met at the Delta Scholars Program. He finally got to see the entire project come full circle for him. And I know it was beautiful and emotional for him to see. And they loved it. I saw in the questions that they asked and the ways that they asked the questions that their perspectives had been changed about the Mississippi Delta. Because what I have experienced in doing this project is this idea of other, right? And I liken it to the story in Luke chapter 10 of the Good Samaritan. You have this man who's traveling from Jerusalem to Jericho. He's beaten and robbed and left on the side of the road for dead. We've all heard the story. The priest passed by first, and he sees him, and he crosses on the other side. You know, this idea of you're walking down the sidewalk, and you see a figure, and so you cross the road, and you cross on the other sidewalk. And a Levite does the same. And these are men of prestige and power within the church. These are men who are probably going to the temple that day and teaching to love your neighbor. And then a third individual comes along, a humble Samaritan on a donkey. And he sees this man. And unlike the priest and the Levite who created practical reasoning for not stopping and helping this man, they could have been beaten. They could be ceremoniously unclean. They could have been robbed. They could have been hurt. And so they pass by. He doesn't do that. He doesn't see this man as a problem. He doesn't see this man as other. He sees the beaten man as himself. And he sees the beaten man as humanity and the lackings and the weakness of humanity. And he picks him up and he puts him on the donkey. You know, he anoints his wounds. He carries him to an inn. He does all these things in the way that he would want to be treated. He cared for the man in the same way that he cared for himself. And then he tells the innkeeper, he gives him 2 denarii, and he says, I'll come back and pay the rest. Take care of this man. And that is such a great summation of the Mississippi Delta for me and for this entire project, is that the Mississippi Delta is the broken and beaten man. It is the man on the side of the road. It's the poverty and the destitution and the wounds. And the nonprofits that are doing work there are the Good Samaritan. They've picked the Delta up. They're walking the Delta to the inn. And so we as Americans and we as individuals and we as humans have a commitment, I believe, to choose whether we are the priest and the Levite, or are we going to be the innkeeper? Are we going to take this man upon ourselves and continue carrying this torch of service for the Delta? And that's not just in the Mississippi Delta, in the region, in the northwest corner of Mississippi. That's in every community. Every community has a Delta. And even deeper than that, if we would turn inwardly, and if we would look inwardly, we're all broken sinners saved by grace, for all have fallen short of the glory of God, and therefore all are saved by His grace. So what can we do? Well, Ralph Eubanks can write about it. And John Coleman can teach people how to plant farms. And Linda Keys can give coats out. and I can make a documentary. So obviously there's not just one way we can help. It's what we're called to. It's what the Lord calls us to, that we would help the least of these. So yeah.
I don't think there's anything else that needs to be said. That's about as clear a call to action as we can have. And I want to thank you for just following the Spirit and not only giving us the gift of the documentary, but giving us the encouragement of, listening to a person who has been changed by a journey that they never intended to go on. And that really is what the kind of story we want to tell.
Absolutely.
And so thanks again, man. And you've given us some toeholds. One of the things we're trying to do is go and tell stories like that. And we're going to get the names of those places that you've done that, and we want to tell their story too, with your help.
And you can watch JT's film, Jack Thomas Spears, Helping Hands, and you can watch that at our Institute for Southern Storytelling website, and that is southernstorytelling.mc.edu. That's southernstorytelling.mc.edu. And also there's a click to give button. And I almost said right when he finished, now we're going to take up the offering. But I said I'd already ruined one special moment on the show and I didn't want to ruin another. But now that we've said that, there is a give button on the site. But we appreciate the Institute allowing us to use their facilities and partnering with Mississippi College to get these good stories out. And the Hour, our 55-year ministry of telling good news and sharing encouraging, uplifting stories. And that's what we're all about. Jesus told stories. And we're trying to continue that and being the hands and feet and walking along with him and doing that. And JT's just a wonderful example of that. And I will just from here on in just always take the credit of all the things he accomplishes and does in life. So just get ready, Steve. I'm gonna claim all that.
And there we go. Well, we thank you for listening, and we hope that you'll take time to go see the documentary. And if you have questions, contact us on social media, our Facebook page or our website, because we want this to be a living, ongoing conversation. Nothing would tickle us more than to get a story of somebody who said, hey, after I watched JT's story, as I listened to that, I ... So, as always, remember, be different and live loved.
You've been listening to The Difference, a presentation of The Hour. The Difference is made in conjunction with and partnership with the Institute for Southern Storytelling at Mississippi College. To find out more about the Institute and ways that we are partnering and mentoring young lives through storytelling, filmmaking, and more, visit us at southernstorytelling.mc.edu. And for more resources from The Hour and from The Difference, check us out at our Hour Stream platform with the streaming content at thehour.org. I'm Anthony Thaxton. Thanks for joining us.